when a change happens, it's not a crisis. It only becomes an obligation to an occupant of that public office to do good. At this stage in Parliament, there are very, very serious issues the House must resolve for posterity. The issues relating to violation of human rights, for me, are the most critical at this stage. I have not seen a debate on failed service delivery by the Prime Minister and a failure to answer questions in Parliament and running all over the place singing Ekwepichi as a Prime Minister instead of looking for services. What is the turn off, or what do you mean the turning point or regret of serving as the law? I only regret of not being Prime Minister. I should have been the Prime Minister, not the law. Politicians are not easy to work with. You don't listen, the media can listen. Politicians are not easy people. You want to go and support one Honourable Mwada, but he thinks he knows what he wants to do. None of my members, and I have been taking record, all my members have been able to speak in Parliament. I don't have a mute member on my side. Nobody has failed to speak. I'm not talking about what they have spoken, but at least everybody has had to say something on behalf of their people. We are brought before abuse by the regime, abuse of power, abuse of rights, outright theft, outright corruption. Don't forget, for example, that as part of our field excursion, the House 2 weeks ago passed a motion to investigate the abuse of human rights. That the major handicap to doing our work is that the government in power has never appreciated that the opposition exists legitimately and therefore does work backed by the law. I want to ask of my colleagues from the political wing to never shy away from the media, you know, and also speak to the media when you have knowledge. It's very dangerous for us to speak to the media when we don't have knowledge.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Kankwanjulire Hajaruna omusomi w'edduwa Nakinku ng'onava mulendwadde nnyingi nnyo olyeyo ng'otawanyizibwa mu mukwano, otawanyizibwa mu mirimu, weetaaga kumikisa, oyagala kugenda mitala w'amayanja oba obweru w'eggwanga, otawanyizibwa amajinni oba shaitwan n'ebintu ebirala bingi nnyo. Hajaruna akusomera dduwa n'akuvumula bulungi nnyo n'otabaako kintu kyonna ky'ojula. Hajaruna akola ku bantu bonna awatali kusosola mawanga, awatali kusosola madiini ne mu nzikiriza zonna. Hajaruna asangibwa Bulumagi ku luguudo lw'Ejjinja, era osobola okumukubira ku ssimu ze z'olabawo ku screen. Osobola okukuba direct oba n'oyitira ddala ku WhatsApp n'osobola okumufuna n'akuyamba mu buzibu bwonna bw'olina.
I doubt whether in the history of this parliament the office of the leader of the opposition has ever been under scrutiny like it has been over the last 2+ years. Veterans of this trade like my friend Invole probably could be a testimony to the fact that more than ever before, the office of the leader of the opposition has occupied the public media, probably much more than the office of the Prime Minister. Is it a shocker or because we are pace setters? The answer probably lies with you, the media practitioners, why you believe this office has obtained such a critical space and the importance that it's been given a lot of public space, a lot of scrutiny, a lot of questions. And for the first time, we witness public media discussing the term of the leader of the opposition, not the term of the Prime Minister or the Vice President for that matter, the people who collect our taxes and spend them or fail to spend them the way they are supposed to by the opposition leadership. I think for me that is not a minus, and I'm not intending to poke at the media, but to appreciate you for holding us in check as the opposition, because we cannot preach water and drink wine. As such, we are here to share what has been the consequence of our occupation of this public space, because anybody seeking to to occupy public office, it must be to some consequence. Of course, consequence can be negative or positive, but I'm referring to positive consequence. I believe it's the reason why the public has a lot of expectation from the opposition in Parliament. The very reason a lot of scrutiny has been visited on the opposition. Not simply the leader of the opposition, but other opposition operators. My brother Joel will bear testimony to the fact that his committee has occupied a lot of space, and so are other committees where the opposition is in charge. And we cannot take that for granted, but rather continue to understand better public expectation of our occupation of this space. And this morning, we have all the intentions to even share with you more and the public. What do you think? What do they think? Where you think we could have done better? Where you think we could change, improve the way we work, and make our occupation of this space more consequential for common good. And today, we crown the 2.5 years of the first term of our assignment as the alternative government. A term we started somewhere in May 2021, and we set out to offer the public an alternative to the ruling party's way of running the country amidst so many challenges, as we all know them, that include skewed utilization of public resources, unlawful exclusion, runaway corruption, muzzling of public space, public media, and all manner of operation visited on public and private operators or public media. The shadow cabinet that I lead has played a key role to mirror our intentions as the opposition, guided by a document we presented to you sometime in 2021. We dubbed the opposition legislative agenda. And I've seen so many questions in the media discussed as whether the opposition has indeed lived up to the agenda they set themselves to do. Our agenda was our roadmap. We intended to provide to the country a sense of our direction. Because our essence is that if you have nowhere to go, every road takes you. So we had somewhere to go, and therefore we had to cut clear, without obscurity, the sense of our roadmap and what that was embedded in the legislative agenda that we provided. It was not the panacea, it was never the solution of all the problems of our legislative obligation as the opposition, but it offered a peek into what we intended to do as the opposition, because from the onset, it never was our intention to be reactionary, but rather to lead from the front. We didn't want to react to government programs, but we intended to offer our alternative programs, which we have done variously. I have tried, you have those booklets, I think they have been circulated on the tables where you sit, that offer a sense of the issues we have touched. We have done so much that we cannot compress into that booklet, but the booklet offers an outline of the few things that we thought were critical in our work as the opposition, and I would like to ask my technical team to ensure that everybody on each table has access to that book. Probably it will also offer, it will prick the memory of those who read it to pick question they want to share or ask the team here to best understand where we are. So part of our duty over the last 2 years was to strengthen the role of members of parliament as people's representatives in parliament, what we call the representative role of members of parliament. And as the opposition over the last 2 years, we have availed ourselves individually and collectively through the cabinet and non-cabinet members to represent our people. The common voice of the people has filtered through our space, and for the very first time in our history, because I've been here at least for the last 13 years, it's very difficult to have the opposition in the House all the time available and ready. There's being physical available and being ready. We have been both available and ready to respond to any issues in this space, controversial or otherwise, because that's the duty we would like to execute as the opposition. And beyond the constituencies and the chambers, we have also applied ourselves to the battery of mechanisms available to as such to answer, to respond to questions brought by, failed to answer by the Prime Minister and government ministers. We have also sought and obtained ways for time to debate and raise particular issues through the statements we have offered to Parliament. If you recollect, sometime in August, I even brought back to Parliament 50 questions unanswered by the Prime Minister and his ministers. But at least on behalf of the people, we are keeping those questions alive. The Prime Minister will one day have to come back and answer whatever she will be, and her ministers. At least as the opposition, we made sure that nobody runs away without answering what the public is asking. I'd like to congratulate my brother, the opposition chief whip. He has had a challenge this morning and has had to rush to Oduda. That's why he's not here, the Honourable Nambeshe. But I want to thank him for rallying the team all the time to be available to respond to public good. It's not very easy to whip adults. Remember, every one of us is a leader, is a honourable in their own right. And for some reason, we're elected on the same day. Somebody can even remind you that I got more votes than you, so what are you ordering me to do? So the Honourable Nambeshe has had to really do that job, tough as it is, and I want to thank him for making sure that the team is available in Parliament to respond and hold government in check. And of course, it is taken us to do self-improvement for us to be able to undertake the legislative processes in Parliament to ensure enhanced scrutiny and quality legislation. Remember, in our legislative agenda, one of the things we set out to do as the opposition office in Parliament is to support, help and guide members of Parliament to improve the quality of their debate. And I think this we have done excellently. Some of you people in the media have attended our training workshops. The trainings were targeted and deliberate for us to mentor, sharpen the edges of our colleagues. Don't forget that for the very first time, the opposition has more than doubled the numbers in Parliament. In the 10th Parliament, for example, we are hardly 54 as the opposition. And in the 11th Parliament, 109, plus about 8 independents that work with us. That's the very first time the opposition has had a very big number, and over 90% new members of Parliament. So that provided a challenge of a huge magnitude, albeit not insurmountable. So we had to undertake training, and I'm very happy. None of my members, and I've been taking record, all my members have been able to speak in Parliament. I don't have a mute member on my side. Nobody has failed to speak. I'm not talking about what they have spoken, but at least everybody has had to say something on behalf of their people. And as the team leader, that makes me feel a sense of, gratitude for, on behalf of my members, for paying attention and responding to the training we have offered them. over the last 2 years. Of course, one of the things we set out to do, you recollect, at the launch of our legislative agenda, we said we're going to work differently. We're going to take our work to the people. And I'm extremely grateful to my team that we have moved almost more than half of this country, length and breadth, in undertaking our oversight role. We have been to the north, to the northwest, to the southwest, to the east, to the central, undertaking oversight. And in doing this, we have brought to the fore the failure, the critical failure of service delivery in this country, which is our critical role. We have brought to the fore abuse by the regime, abuse of power, abuse of rights, outright theft, outright corruption. Don't forget, for example, that as part of our field excursion, the House 2 weeks ago passed a motion to investigate the abuse of human rights in the fishing communities in this country. Every place we have gone to in the fishing communities, they have complained about abuse. People have been killed, property has been stolen by men and women in uniform. This was very intriguing. And as the oppositionalist, we are proud that finally the House of Parliament has recognized the cry of our people, and the House is about to begin investigating. I talked to the Speaker yesterday. She assured me that before the end of the week, she's going to out terms of reference of the two committees of Parliament, the Committee of Human Rights and Internal Affairs, that are going to investigate the abuse of human rights in the fishing communities. This was a key outcome of our field excursions in taking Parliament to the people, on the opposition to the people. I'm proud that we are changing the way we work. We are not armchair opposition, but we go to the people, listen to the people, and best understand their challenges and tribulations. We have brought out critically the failure of service delivery, and I'm very happy with the media. I thank you most sincerely. And how you brought to light the issues we discovered. The schools that we visited, with the children sitting on logs, under the clothing, polythene paper, all sorts of problems, studying under tree shades. We visited hospitals. You saw the kind of suffering visited on our communities and the failure of the health sector. You have seen a road infrastructure crumbling away, and now the regime is fidgeting, saying they're fixing it. I think it's because the opposition in Parliament has been proactive in not simply talking about these things, but visited practically and highlighted these issues. The violations, land grabbing in the countryside. Those of you I traveled with to Luwero, in Zirowe. When we left, if you recollect, that village we visited in Zirowe, where the military, some military men and the RDC there had taken over the whole village. They have since disappeared because they brought those issues to bear to the community, to the public. It's because the opposition has been working. The problem is still, of course, big, of abusing our people on their land and settling them, especially by the powerful, by the regime operatives and the military, abusing our people and their property. We visited Chotera, where my brother Mpalanyi and Honourable fortunately represent, how citizens have been really undermined on their land in the ECOP pipeline project. Now I'm told they're panicking and going back. But those people have petitioned Parliament, and I'm very sure the DO here are ready to represent their people and present their petition to Parliament. The long and short of this is that we have been able to bring out the issues that affect our people, and we have held government accountable on a number of violations, and neglect. For example, you are aware we have an impending audit of the Central Forest Reserve, a matter that is still pending. I'm very sure my very able Shadow Minister of Environment, the Honourable, the indefatigable Christine Kaya, is ready with that. She's been talking about it over and over. We need to audit environmental degradation in this country, especially the giveaway of the Central Forest Reserve, wherever we have been. These are matters we have brought out. We visit the mining sector, a sector, together with fishing, we described as being mafia-led sectors. No doubt the mafia in charge of fishing, they are also in charge of mining. You saw this week what happened in Kalungu. One of the mafias that we were told by the people of Kalungu is terrorizing them. Kalungu East. There is a learning site, I forget the name, Kamunga. Yeah, there is a terrorist called Kawesa. I'm told he was arrested last week with several tons of premature fish. So this is the fellow who's been terrorizing citizens and accusing them of illegal fishing. So he has over 100 boats and several tons of fish, premature fish, that he is logging and selling to DRC and other places. So he's a military man, being covered by military men and women, and the common people are suffering. I am happy with the opposition because we were able to bring out these people. They were in denial, now they are hunting each other. Very soon, the thieves will start accusing each other, and we are proud for bringing out that as the opposition. Of course, we set out also. One of the most difficult things in Parliament is legislation, making laws. First of all, very few members of Parliament pay attention to lawmaking, partly because of limited knowledge of the process, but also the process is a bit intricate and technical and ends up being boring. I want to congratulate my team for caring for every bill that has come on the floor of Parliament. The opposition has had a position it has provided. I can mention several legislations that have come. We have offered our view of the law. We have done a bill analysis of every other bill and offered an alternative. This information, for those who want to record for posterity, is available in print for you to share with the world on how we've been able to put on record all these issues. Of course, not forgetting that a number of my members have their own private members' bills. People like Dr. Bedi Bwanika has a bill, the contract farming bill. The Honourable Chiaga has a bill to amend the copyright and neighboring rights law. It's an advanced stage. Honourable Chivumbi got leave to amend the Public Finance Management Act, and several other colleagues with proposals that we are working on. That for me is a clear testament to the fact that our team understood very well what to do, and they have embarked on it. I have been here for some time, and we have expended the time without the opposition even mooting a proposal to amend any law or to provide any law. So this seemingly young and a bit novice team has, for me, scaled the heights in as far as appreciating this duty and undertaking to follow up on it. Of course, this wouldn't have been achieved without the very, very able support of our technical team. Every once and again, the technical team of the opposition is changed, and it takes a bit of time. You see, the work at Parliament is not work like any other place. It is very particular, very specific, sometimes intricate, in some cases confusing. But I want to congratulate Peter and the team for a job well done. The technical team has been working so well. They have provided very critical technical backstopping to these politicians. The politicians are not easy to work with. You don't listen, the media can listen. Politicians are not easy people. You want to go and support one Honourable Mwada, but he thinks he knows what he wants to do. He wants to do it differently. You know, I'm using Honourable Mwada because I know he won't be angry about it. So we are not easy people. So the technical team has been very critical, but we have also trained them. They are a well-trained team, well-oiled to do their work, and I want to thank them for enabling us to do this work. Their capacity has been well built, and through the benchmarking visits they have undertaken to various jurisdictions with their members of parliament on a number of things, we can speak the same language, which is why in the last financial year they were able to do something unique, to provide an alternative budget with an approach hitherto unknown to these spaces, what we call the human approach to budgeting. And I'm very sure until we explained its length and breadth, many people were confused as to what the opposition was up to. The country now understands that the budget is not a matter of cram work, that the budget can be oriented to certain things and make people feel different about the budget and its meaning to them. I want to thank the technical team for being receptive and open to change, because the politicians offer the framework, they benchmark what they want to be done, and the job of the technical team is to polish that. We speak in raw form, but they have no space and luxury to work in raw form. They have to work in a refined form. So, Peter, Dr. Sozi, Dr. Walusimbi, the team leaders, I want to congratulate you for making our work possible and smart. I don't think we have ever produced any shabby work. No, it's because we work with a very good team, an enabled team, and an able team, which is why we're here to thank them for supporting us, and I hope we continue doing the same in the next session of Parliament, because it's not yet uhuru for us. Invariably, all this happens with a lot of challenges. At the beginning of our term, I was asked what I envisage as the major obstacle to achieving our critical objectives. And I said today, I re-echo the same sentiments, that the major handicap to doing our work is that the government in power has never appreciated that the opposition exists legitimately and therefore does work backed by the law. A number of times the opposition is looked at as a bother, a huge bother, and dragging government work in some way. And when that is the sentiment expressed by those with power, authority of resources, authority of coercion, power to coerce, then you have a problem as the opposition. You recollect when we were doing our field work, the Prime Minister of the Republic dared to say that I should not go back as if I am her son or subordinate. She did not does not believe that the opposition actually has a legal mandate to hold her in check. Of course, we defied her, aware that she was speaking out of turn. The sentiments expressed by the Prime Minister are the sentiments percolating and perforating down the echelons of government, that the opposition is a bother, the opposition is making work impossible, we should do away with them. The movement mentality has never vacated some mind spaces and has constrained work. In fact, so many actors, including members of parliament, look at the opposition as some funny outfit. But I'm glad that over time, part of our work has been education. We have been educating ourselves on our responsibility and also educating our adversaries of our duty. And I think over time they have appreciated our work. Thanks to my team for being assertive in what they've been doing, because you can only assert yourself to be understood in a certain way, and then your adversary will surrender to your insistence. It's because of the insistence that we've been able to do this work. Is our numerical strength a challenge? Yes, it's a challenge because for a house of 500 plus members, and you barely have a third of that, is a challenge. So for you to be able to be impactful on what you do, you must raise the threshold of what you do in terms of output. That has been our preoccupation. For you to be able to attract the attention of your adversary, you must be able to raise the quality of your output. Otherwise, if you are few and your output is kwara, so to speak, then of course you cannot really have the attention of your adversary. Thank you, my team, the political colleagues and the technical team, for being able to raise the threshold of our output to the extent that we cannot be ignored. It's very difficult. It's almost improbable to ignore the opposition in Parliament because we have raised the threshold of our work. Many challenges remain, but the challenges are not insurmountable. We're going to continue pushing what we believe in. At this stage in Parliament, there are very, very serious issues the House must resolve for posterity. The issues relating to violation of human rights, for me, are the most critical at this stage. If we do not resolve the current impasse, where those with authority are not able to pronounce themselves and come clean of various gross violation of human rights, then any debate of politics does not make sense. Assuming that the country is preparing for an election in the next 2.5 years, how do you prepare for another activity when problems over the past activity have not been resolved? And this is where we are insistent that the opposition in and outside the Parliament must find and summon the best of their energy to make sure that these issues are resolved. And nobody should really introduce other issues until these issues are resolved. The issues are definitive of our intentions as leaders. They are defining of our legacy as political actors, and they remain in the annals of our history as matters this generation either resolved or cowardly failed to resolve. And I don't think the House of Parliament can act in a cowardly manner and run away from its obligation of ensuring that the history about us will be a history of courage, will be a history of determination, because the issues at hand are definitive and will speak to our legacy. I want once again to thank you, the media, for being a part of what we have been doing and continue to do, and I believe that when the media does work better, everybody works better. As a mirror of the public, the mirror should not be a bloody mirror. The mirror should be clear. The clarity of your reporting, the clarity of your analysis. When I say clarity of analysis, one of my friends, who is not yet here, in one of our meetings at my parade quarters, in his analysis, he analyzed how I looked at my president and his issue that Mpuga's eyes and that of his president were not looking as friendly as... So I'm only saying that the quality of how the media analyzes the issues at hand is very important in shaping how society views the space occupied by politicians in this country. Nobody should occupy public space without consequence. And the consequence must be positive consequence. If it's going to be negative, then you have every reason to seek vacation of that space, because that space is very critical and consequential. I want to ask of my colleagues from the political wing to never shy away from the media, you know, and also speak to the media when you have knowledge. It's very dangerous for us to speak to the media when we don't have knowledge. But I'm glad many of my colleagues, where they do not know, they seek information before they speak out. It's the reason probably why we have been able to speak to the country with firmness, with authority, and with a direction that seeks to offer public good and echo our chosen motto of accountability and service. And because I said I don't want this to be a monologue, but I thought I should highlight to you how we've been working and operating, so that you load your guns after listening to me, and then fire from all ranges without fear or favor. They do not cause adrenalines to rise. And as the leader of the opposition, I am part and partial of a political culture we are trying to grow, that when a change happens, it's not a crisis. It only becomes an obligation to an occupant of that public office to do good. And whoever is in office be supported by all and sundry to do their work. It is as simple as that. I don't think that should cause any adrenalines. Of course, I poked the media, like you observed. It was purposeful to appreciate the fact that the office has been profiled to a level more than ever before, that it causes debate, when actually the duty to do public good lies with the government. So the media has allowed government to get away with the murder, with the corruption, lack of service, and paid attention to the opposition office that has no resources to implement to do services. I think as the editor, you question the wisdom of your reporters in laying, in concentrating. I have not seen a debate on failed service delivery by the Prime Minister and a failure to answer questions in Parliament, and running all over the place, singing Ikwepiche as a Prime Minister instead of looking for services, offering services to the people of Uganda. But I appreciate there are a few members in here. Mr. Ambule, we are dealing with adults. Well, many members communicated they were traveling back from Kigali. I'm human enough to understand that. But also, I can't rule out the fact that some members are already in a holiday mode. But I cannot be a person to compel people to be here. The only person that reached out to me was the chief whip, and he called me rushing home to sort out a family matter, and I can understand that. So when you meet them in the corridor, ask them where they were. That is their question, not my question. Nobody from the party secretariat, you want to advise us on who invite here? Was that your intention? We did not invite them. It was a media interaction between the office of the leader of the opposition and the media. I wanted this space to be occupied by members of parliament. That's why you are free to fire at anyone here. If my party president was here, it would be about the party president. So we wanted this to be about parliament, the opposition and the parliament and their work. So feel free to fire to them. So when we have space when we want the party to be involved and discuss intra and extra party issues, we invite them. So I thought this space would best be occupied by the people the party sent here and obligated. In fact, I expect you to ask people to account for the obligations, to the duties given to them by the party, from within NUP and without. So that's why I wanted them to occupy this space. Maybe some of them have even never had occasion to account for their work. So this is their space. Allow them space to. If the Secretary General was here, it will be about him. When will a humble man like Joel get space to speak in the presence of his president? So that's why we choose. How will my man from Kagologolo, Chukuba Mutwe, Kayemba Solo have occasion to speak to the media in the presence of the president? So sometimes this space is gazetted for humble humans to also speak to the country. Kindly take it in that light. But whenever we do and whatever we do, we are obligated to inform as a matter of respect to the party secretariat. Mr. Francis Rubega from Sapientia, term of office. I have expressed my inner feeling in my preambles here to you that we have worked, we have not withered, we have worked together. It's not easy to put together a team and that team delivers. We are a 6-party platform, and getting those people to work, these parties are founded on various ideological foundations. They come here with different objectives, but you must figure out a mechanism of filtering those objectives and consolidate them into a workable framework that will speak to the common voice of the opposition. So my inner feeling is that we have done a lot, but it's not yet uhuru. We would have had a sense of deja vu if we probably have delivered on our most critical objective of regime change. Okay? So I feel a sense of pride in how we've been able to consolidate the team amidst various challenges, including the regime poking at the opposition. Midway, you have some of the opposition party members cross. That's not a small thing, but when they cross, as the leader, you have a duty to gather the remaining team members to play their role effectively and well. So I think deeply that we have worked together amidst serious challenges. Remember, we started this work from a highly controversial, divisive, violent election. So this work began at the backdrop of that. And the country held its breath as well as the opposition, beaten, scattered, battered violently, will be able to assemble and have a sense of direction. So I'm here to state without a fear of contradiction that we have expressed ourselves well amidst these enormous challenges. I hope I have answered you. What is the turn off, or what do you mean the turning point or regret of serving at the law? I only regret of not being Prime Minister. I should have been the Prime Minister, not the law. If you're asking the regret, because my party won the general election. So the regret was that we were not announced. How do you look at me as the Prime Minister of the Republic compared to being a law? Maybe things have been different. Otherwise, I cannot say that I regret being a law. It's a big honor to lead colleagues. It's a very huge responsibility. It's a huge honor. It's also an opportunity to show that actually you have a sense of understanding of this obligation. Okay? And that kind of responsibility, I cannot regret. I can't regret how I have been able to summon my basic skills to bear upon this responsibility and how the team has responded to my call, to my direction, to my guidance. I never grew up with any of the MPs. The people began to send to them here. They all came as adults. Nobody made 18 at swearing in. They all came as adults. So to be able to consolidate them and have an output for me was a huge responsibility, which I pride in as having executed, even in the face of a lot of challenges that I think are not necessarily insurmountable, but we have tried to do. How do you describe the current jungle, describe it from all over the opposition actors, parties? I think it's not the opposition that is in a crisis. The country faces some form of existential threat as a nation state. The level at which political actors perceive responsibility is scary. And of course the rate and the response of political players in the opposition is also a bit disturbing. Because of regime longevity, brutality and intolerance, some layers of the opposition have become a bit insipid and unresponsive to this obligation. I get the sense that some of our political layers are getting tired and they need a renewal. That's why you hear some people, some political actors, probably have begun subscribing to the regime, either out of lack of direction, either they are a little, uninspired to work differently. It's a huge duty, but all of us are obligated. In the face of the civic space that is being frozen, it becomes a huge obligation on anybody seeking to play a part in this space, to be strong, to self-express, to speak out strongly, and make their intentions known. The only problem a political actor can visit on this country is not making their intentions known, to grandstand, to appear to be serious when actually acting unseriously. So if you ask me, that's the challenge. And I challenge myself and all that intend to change the direction of this country to realize that we face a very serious challenge after a regime of 40 years to undo the evil that has been planted into this country, to kill the seed of intolerance, of corruption, of murder. Because the ongoing debate, for example, of human rights violations before, during, and after the 2021 general election, it is an attempt by the ruling party to settle a political score by coercion. It's an attempt to solve a political problem of the country using force. And this the country must reject. All the opposition political actors must understand the breadth of this problem and rise to reject the overtures of the ruling party to settle the political dispute using force. Your last question, the report of cooperatives. What do you make of the opposition member that we have mentioned? If a member was mentioned as having participated in this corruption, they should face the law. There's only one law in this land, and whoever is mentioned in the report must face the law. If they had no obligation, if there's no question to answer, the law is sorted. Do you want me to write another report? The report is a public document. So I do not have anything to sympathize, or unless people should face the law, if they have questions to answer, they must answer them. Corruption is person to holder. Okay? It's not institutional that somebody is doing so for the benefit of their community. So that and the other reports before Parliament where individuals have been implicated or indicted, they must face the law to the letter. I hope I've responded to the first set of questions. You've made mention of the example of sleek cars that are being bought. I think you're making reference to the cars that are bought to the previous speakers. First of all, the House, the Parliamentary Commission, I think, was responding to the law, because the law was amended to make provision for these former speakers. The issue I have, and I think this matter must be debated in the commission and also have an opinion of the Attorney General of the Republic, namely, at what stage must one take a benefit of these parks? I think it's a question of interpreting the law. Can somebody take a benefit when they still have the extra benefit, when they still have a lien on the public pass? That's a question that the legal minds must break down. For instance, my old friend, the Right Honourable Rebecca Kadaga, a former speaker, deputy speaker, then speaker, but still a government minister, meaning that she has still access to the public pass, and therefore she's not entirely retired. So is the Right Honourable Sekandi, who is a former vice president and a former speaker. The question is, if she's finally retired, what perks does he take? That of a former vice president, former speaker, or both? And then is he the presidential advisor? So that therefore he has access to the public pass. So how do you interpret the fact that one has a double lien on the public pass? That's a matter that the law must navigate and interpret. Otherwise, if people serve the country variously and diligently, I saw old men like Professor Lugumayo, Ambassador, what's his name? Butajira. You get the feel that these are deserving senior citizens. First of all, they no longer have a lien on the public pass. I think that debate must return to the House, and the law must be properly structured so that it does not receive a multiplicity of interpretations. The intentions of the lawmakers must be understood by all and sundry. But secondly, probably it relates to the timing of these parks. But that's the matter. The issue of timing probably also about for how long should a person who's supposed to receive suffer. So what is the right timing? I'd rather go with the other interpretation that we have people that are recipients but still have a lien on the public pass. That is the double charge on the consolidated fund, which I think is illegal and unconstitutional. But I don't think interpreting the law is a matter for the House Speaker. The Attorney General must come out and restate the intentions of the law so that those who are deserving must deservingly get. But should not really appear if there is, a bonanza of sorts. That's my humble view. Mr. Hasif, the 40 million bribe, and then we have the 100 million. First of all, like I said, matters involving corruption and partaking of what is not due to you is a matter of personal probity. But political organizations where people come from have an obligation to align their members, to remind them of their duty to nation and to their parties. And I think NUP should be applauded for being out to clarify where they stand. So if you're a member of NUP and the party has given a clear, unequivocal instruction and you violate it, then it's a personal probity matter, and therefore the internal party mechanism should really work on you. Our position as NUP has been with clarity stated, and therefore I expect nothing but compliance by my members. The law could be changed. You think you need a second term? This is related to what my sister Teopista asked. What the message to the new law? First of all, changing the law is an undertaking by the party, and when the party does so, it must be respected. And that cannot represent a crisis in the country or in the party. A political action taken by an institution must be to a consequence, must be for a particular, objective. And that objective should be left to the National Executive Committee of NUP, to which I am a member. So when it does so, that will be NUP undertaking. its duty to offering leadership. Mr. Opista, if there's a new law, the advice should depend on the person and the character, because people are various. If I get to know who is the one, then I'll be able to advise, because I know each of my members. So I'll be able to advise the pen. I don't have a text of advice or a book bank. No. Advice depends on character and personality. So I'll be able to advise depending on the person that will come.
We do the work that we do, put together reports, and they are not acted upon. I don't get surprised. I don't. I actually get pleasantly surprised when sometimes there is some little action that is taken. That's when it is surprising, and that's what society has become, that when something good is done, you're surprised. For example, when we inquired into Uganda Railways Corporation, produced a report, 48 billion shillings that was absquatulated with the locomotives deal, a fake locomotives deal. We recommended that these people be fired and be prosecuted. The MD and the board were fired, but we have been waiting for prosecution. So they only implemented part of our recommendations, because that's a lot of money. It's not enough to get somebody out of their office. We want action. When investigated Uganda Land Commission, we found that titles were forged and people were paid billions of shillings. We successfully got some of those titles cancelled, but the money has not been reimbursed, because we were saying the titles should be cancelled. These people must return that money because they got it fraudulently. So that has yet to happen. So you see that even when some recommendations are acted upon, it's only partial. Recently we handled UNBS, and you saw the rot we unearthed, and we said, no, these people must be fired. Some have been fired, including the MD, but we are waiting for prosecution, because as you saw, charges were being withdrawn and that kind of thing. So even when action gets to be taken, it's only partial. And yet there's a litany of other issues that we unearth, and not much gets to be done. And you see, my insistence has always been, this work that we do, because I do hear some say, these senyonyis, the opposition people, they want to make government look bad. 70% of the members on my committee, COSASE, are actually NRM members. When we produce these reports and we table them on the floor of Parliament, one, all our reports, and we have had several reports, there's been no minority report. Number two, for all the reports that make their way to the floor, because as you know, some, for many reasons, don't make their way to the floor, even when they are there. But all those that do, they have been unanimously adopted by the whole House. So that's not my report anymore, it's a report of Parliament. And we have been saying, can we begin to take action if we are serious about corruption? My appeal to the leadership of Parliament has been, and continues to be, that let's begin to dig in our heels as Parliament and insist that action gets to be taken on our recommendations as Parliament. That way Parliament will begin to be taken seriously. Because if we don't do that and use the stick that we have, and the stick we have as Parliament is the appropriation stick. So if we say entity X, this and this happened, we want action A, B, C, D taken. When they don't take that action and they return during the budget process, like we are now in the budget process, when they return for appropriation, we should not release money to those entities until our recommendations have been acted upon. That's the only way Parliament will be taken seriously. But once we don't do that, will not be taken seriously. And that's why Parliament can censure a minister and she will still come and sit on the front bench. In other words, saying, to hell with you guys. Why? Because we have not dug in our heels and taken ourselves seriously. So that's the appeal that I have always made and still make to Parliament and the leadership, that we need to be taken serious ourselves by insisting on action to be taken. Yeah, so that's just the situation that happens. But otherwise, we unearth many of these things. You, the media, you have always covered. You saw when we were handling Uganda Civil Aviation Authority, and all the airport issues there on the famous Uganda Airlines. You all know what happened to that report with all the mess there was. Yeah, and recently I saw Uganda Airlines has made a lot more losses than they have in the past years. Because if you don't fix these issues, the entity will not thrive. These are not issues of NRM or position. No, these are issues about the country. One of the things we discovered about Uganda Airlines is people were recycling tickets. You buy a ticket for a Dubai trip, for example, some of these regular flyers, and the person uses that same ticket 10 times. Yeah, but you guys were there when we were covering these things. And it is in our report, which was denied audience on the floor. So people are recycling tickets because they were in cahoots with some of the managers. So the ticket is not closed in the system. So you use it over 10 times. How do you expect not to make losses? They were buying fuel through a middleman. The real source told us, well, for us we have no problem selling directly to Uganda Airlines. But if they don't want to buy from us, they want to buy from a middleman who has bought from us, that's their problem. So the middleman buys and then sells to Uganda Airlines about twice as much the price. And you later discovered who the middleman was. The very managers created this, and many other issues, yeah? So if you don't fix these issues, and you think you're punishing Joel Senyonyi, you're punishing yourself. And I can say that for all these other entities that we inquired into. You saw with KCCA, they wanted to purchase 10 acres of land at $100 million. That's 370 billion. Meaning each acre to cost 37 billion to put traders. Even in Dubai, an acre does not cost that. And I saw them coming back to Parliament saying, you know, please avail this money to KCCA and so on. What is wrong is wrong. Yeah, and then several others. I'll not take too much time, but the direct response is we don't get surprised when action is not taken, but we need to keep insisting as Parliament that action gets to be taken. If we are serious about this phrase of zero tolerance to corruption, then let's take action. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Kankwanjulire Hajaruna omusomi w'edduwa Nakinku ng'onava omulendwadde nnyingi nnyo oli eyo ng'otawanyizibwa mu mukwano otawanyizibwa mu mirimu weetaaga kumikisa oyagala kugenda mitala w'amayanja oba obweru w'eggwanga otawanyizibwa amajinni oba shaitwan n'ebintu ebirala bingi nnyo Hajaruna akusomera dduwa n'akuvumula bulungi nnyo n'otabaako kintu kyonna ky'ojula. Hajaruna akola ku bantu bonna awatali kusosola mawanga awatali kusosola madiini ne mu nzikiriza zonna. Hajaruna asangibwe Burumaji ku luguudo lw'Ejjinja era osobola okumukubira ku simu ze z'olabawo ku screen, osobola okukuba direct oba n'oyitira ddala ku WhatsApp n'osobola okumufuna n'akuyamba mu buzibu bwonna bw'olina.